So where did this whole hypervisor thing come from? In general, it's actually not a new thing. It's something that's been happening since the mainframe era. One of the original things that mainframes did was create this idea of a virtual machine or an independent container for specific applications. They've been doing this for quite a while, and they actually had an operating system called VMCMS, which actually did this many, many decades ago. So where is this coming from, and why are we seeing it now? Well, over the course of history, what happened as the mainframe moved into the client-server area, we had the idea that we can now throw a lot more hardware at it. So now you had the idea of independent pieces of hardware instead of segmenting one large device. Well, in the client-server era, what we found is we got more and more servers all over the place. Now the question was, how do you start to manage all of these servers? So where hypervisors really started coming into the fray was, once you have this idea of lots of servers, you want to bring them together and make them more manageable. This is a much more recent event. A couple things happened. The first one was binary emulation. As we got more CPU power, we now had the ability to actually emulate one device inside of another. And that requires CPU cycles and memory. So as we started to get more of these resources in the servers, we can look at new and interesting ways to solve the problem. Well, that was the first piece, but that doesn't really give you a way to fully run a server in a production environment. The next thing that happened is some of the chipset vendors, such as Intel and AMD, started coming out with virtualization extensions directly inside the processors. This allowed you to do very similar level of resource segmentation and also resource control for each of these virtual machines and enforce that inside the chips themselves. That's a much more recent development, and that's really the thing that enabled us to start creating large virtualization environments. Now that's the first piece. If you have a hypervisor, that's basically the supervisory system that controls the creation and management of each of these containers or VMs inside of the server. The last piece, though, is the most important one, and that is management. Having the ability to do this in hardware is interesting, but if you're going to solve the problem of having all these distributed servers and solve the management scaling problem, you need a way to control and orchestrate this large environment. So ultimately, there was a set of software which came out that allowed you to take a large number of these virtualization hosts or hypervisors and now control the resources and start to allocate these resources from one place to the other. So as we see technologies like what VMware's vSphere and also Zen and also some of the LKVM work and some of the ancillary orchestration systems, what you're really getting now is this software layer that allows you to take and control this fundamental hardware capability and deliver this at scale. And that's really where we see most of the work coming from inside the virtualization environment, and that's where this starts getting really interesting.